My name is Atenkosi Ngubevana, and I'm the Chairperson of the South African AI Awards. Being a Chairperson of the South African AI Awards is both an honor and a responsibility, because I actually see that this is an opportunity for us to amplify how AI is impacting the different facets of society. My vision is for everybody in South Africa and the African context to be able to see themselves in AI, benefiting and understanding how they can improve their lived experiences through the adoption of AI. There's three key pillars that I've seen being quite a strong enabler of AI adoption. Strategy, it's the people, and the data enablement. And strangely enough, it's not just the technology in of itself. When you look at the leadership and the kind of understanding of where AI can fit in from a strategy enablement becomes key, because you then get to understand the why. It is not AI for the sake of AI, nor should they be a driver of adopting AI because they do not want to be left behind. So post the concept of proof of concepts that most organizations have gone into, a secondary pillar that I've seen coming into effect is the fact that our data that a lot of organizations have are not ready for AI adoption and consumption. What this means is that there almost needs to be a step back that organizations need to do to understand the quality of the data, implement quality AI governance policies to make sure that the strategy is enabled by the data strategy that currently exists. And then the third pillar, which is the people, which speaks to culture, it speaks to appreciating that there is an inherent fear of displacement that comes with the technology. So if change management and people and skills is not a key pillar to your AI strategy, I found a lot of organizations not only seem to struggle from an implementation perspective, but the adoption of AI because it is seen as a threat. So if organizations focus on those three pillars, the technology in of itself evolves, right? What we knew about AI 2 years ago is not what we know right now. So you don't want to focus your strategy on the technology and architecture alone. But those three pillars are key foundational elements that enable AI adoption in our enterprise organizations. I think this is why we actually chose the theme for this year's awards, celebrating AI as a social and economic enabler. I think one of the things we need to be able to be deliberate about is understanding what are the key socio-economic enablers that enable any economy to thrive. A healthy citizens enable for us to have a good and amazing base to consume our products that we build. So to what extent can we be very deliberate in actually adopting AI in our health sector? Agriculture will also be a strong enabler in terms of enabling food and food security and affordable food that enables healthy citizens and a consumer base. We also want to be able to make sure that we celebrate how AI can be enabled in our small, medium, and township economy, making sure that the majority of the citizens in the country actually benefit with the AI adoption. What also becomes important is also appreciating how AI, together with the data that exists in our society, can also become a very strong financial enabler, especially for the markets that are generally underserved because they do not participate traditionally in the financial services sector. So if we get our health enabled, ensure food security is enabled, ensure that SMEs and the medium enterprises within, especially our township economy, are enabled, then also using financial levers to uplift small, medium enterprises, that would be quite a strong pillar that I believe needs to be celebrated within the AI space. I believe what needs to come into effect at a national level is a conversation about AI sovereignty and also being able to have a very strong AI strategy, which is currently in effect. This means that from a private and public partnership perspective, our government needs to be very deliberate in ensuring easy access to data that represents the ecosystem that our citizens actually operate. So if we have then data sovereignty, this means that the different kinds of AI use cases can come into effect. What this could mean is that if we know where our citizens live, we know how they navigate through our mobile capabilities in terms of the telecommunications industry, we would then know which kinds of urban areas fall short in terms of urbanization. That becomes a pipeline of a strategy from a digitalization perspective so that more data is created? To what extent then can we then ensure that our health sector and the public space is actually digitally enabled, data is created, and AI use cases can then come into effect? Another strong pillar that the government could actually enable is access to languages. So if you think about how we've got national communication strategies that has a strong anchor in encapsulating our natural languages, that is something that a lot of private sectors are actually even struggling to get access to. So it means that from a data accessibility perspective, the government can play a very strong role in enabling those spaces that then can have a ripple effect on creating new industries that are yet to exist. And this then creates that ecosystem that will enable the art of the possible when it comes to seeing what opportunities are existing within the AI ecosystem. I think there's two elements that I believe needs to come into effect. It's an understanding of what it means to be an ethical leader and ethical leaders in the AI space, and also having the ability to understand what the technology can or can't do and what gaps currently exist and where the strategy from an AI perspective will come into effect. I think as a nation, we do not actually have clear, defined, and understanding of what ethical AI looks like. And in my mind, one, if we are going to enable AI to be a socio-economic enabler, we need to make sure that we do not unintendedly expose our citizens to harm. What this means is that where we kind of joke about the Poppy Act, as an example, the responsibility of leaders is to make sure that our citizens' data is handled responsibly. We do not harm our children or people that are indigent. We then need to figure out from an ethical standpoint perspective, what does it mean to have inclusive economic growth? What are the elements that should be governed and left for the government to be an enabler? Where should small, medium enterprises play? Where large enterprises are already playing? So by creating that ecosystem, we would be able to be very clear in terms of leadership and where AI can benefit so that it is not a function of your pockets or your wallet, but making sure that they are players that could enable these multiple facets in terms of having ethical and enablement of AI. What also becomes important is understanding the risks that are associated with AI adoption. I think one of the things we've grown to appreciate is that, especially in the social media space, we tend to expose ourselves from a digital perspective, but I think a lot of people don't seem to appreciate what it means to have a digital footprint. I think the cybersecurity aspect and us naturally being in the social media space naturally exposes us to certain kinds of risks. So what kind of policies can be put in place to ensure that within our natural landscape of digital transformation and adoption, we do not expose ourselves to risk as citizens? And I think this is where government could play a very big role in setting up a framework that does not expose us. As we are accelerating in AI adoption, we do not expose our citizens to more risk because we want to have a digital footprint and data and AI to be enabled within our communities. An AI ecosystem in the South African landscape requires collaboration. Business tends to be ahead of the curve in terms of any industrial revolution. Business has got the capital to invest in the trends, understand and almost create sandbox environments that actually get them to understand the art of the possible. I believe the academia space has the ability to actually understand the theories that should inform how AI should be deployed, employed, and see what are the opportunities that help us understand how everything should come together. I think we need to be very deliberate in creating innovative spaces where if I have an idea as a citizen, it does not need for me to have special connections in order for me to be part of that ecosystem. And that also includes creating spaces where access to data, access to quality technology that is responsibly deployed comes into effect, whether it is through AI hubs across the country. And then also making sure that when we have a strong AI strategy, the industries that get to be identified as key industries actually understand the role that they play in enabling inclusive AI. So that also means that in these strategic imperatives, if it means we want to see AI in security, what does it mean from a national security perspective? And how do we have different individuals and organizations participating meaningfully in that ecosystem so that we do not have small players being left behind, but also the smaller players get to play an integral role in adopting AI at a national level. So I believe that recognition matters and representation matters. And I think the awards will highlight the art of the possible. There are certain individuals who are sitting in corners actually believing that they are still in a proof of concept or pilot mode. When they start seeing the kinds of nominees that are out there, it becomes an aspirational concept to say, when I fix this and enable this, this actually allows for me to have visibility at a national platform level. What also comes into effect is that as people get to understand AI, they will then also understand how AI is going to impact them so that when the AI comes within their lived realities, their first natural instinct is not fear, but actually participate in enabling value. So I think the awards are so important in actually highlighting the different pockets of AI adoption in the country, and how even though it might come across as though it's still in small pockets, it then allows for us as citizens to have those meaningful dialogues to say, what more could we do and what is missing? That then becomes opportunities for us to unlock more value, whether it is through our citizen enablement from a social perspective or creating new economic pillars that currently do not exist, because now people are starting to see what great AI use cases and organizations look like. We then start having the right conversations in terms of focusing on adoption of responsible AI rather than being fearful of it.